Hi, everyone. We're waiting for everybody to join. Let's give it a minute for everybody to come in. Okay. So welcome, everyone. Um, my name is Julis Gees. I'm an independent consultant based in Belgium, and I'm also one of the outcome harvesting community facilitators. I'm doing this together with Connie Hoiting and Carmen Wilson-Grau, who will now also introduce themselves. Carmen, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Good day. My name is Carmen Wilson Grau. I'm based in Guatemala, and I'm an independent consultant specialized in outcome harvesting. And as Kudo mentioned, one of the facilitators. Welcome, everyone.
Hi, my name is Connie Hoiting. I'm also an independent outcome harvesting consultant based in the Netherlands.
Hey, so please keep yourself muted, and it would also be great if you can keep your cameras off during the presentations, and you could put them back on when we come to the Q&A. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording and slides will be shared in our community after the webinar. This is the 17th webinar of the outcome harvesting community, and there are many more to come. If you have an experience with outcome harvesting that you would like to share, then please do write to us, and you could be one of the next webinar presenters. Today's webinar is about digital tools for outcome harvesting. It's a bit longer than usual because we're actually going to show you the tools. So that takes a bit more time than presenting with slides. We have about 1.5 hours today, so we have 3 presentations and time for questions. After each presentation, we will have 5 minutes of questions, and then we will have more questions at the end. During the presentations, you're welcome to write your questions in the chat, and we will take them during Q&A time. So I'm excited to present you our presenters for today, which are Claire Mansfield from Oxfam Novib, who will present Cognitive Forms, which they have used as an online data collection tool. So she will discuss the benefits and challenges of using Cognitive Forms for their outcome harvesting. This will be followed by a presentation from Steph Dupre from Voices That Count, and he will talk about a dashboard that they developed for organizations to use as part of their MEL system. But first of all, before we get to their presentations, I will introduce another tool to you, which is called Tape. So Tape is basically a tool that is similar to Podio. So some of you may remember one of the previous webinars where I introduced the Podio tool to you together with Helene Bach and Tia Meinecke from ActionAid. So basically, the developers from Podio have now created a new tool called Tape. So the functionality is quite similar. It's a very new tool, however, so it was developed in 2022. So more developments within the tool will still happen, but I'm going to show you what's possible from today. So basically, just like Podio, Tape is a tool it's a business platform, so to say, that can be adjusted to your needs. So you can use it for project management, or you can, for example, have your contact directory in there, etc. So you can do task management and everything in there, but it has the value that it's very customizable. And that's why it's very useful for outcome harvesting, because you can create the way it looks, you can create that yourself, you can adapt it to your needs, and then basically you can collaborate on the outcomes. You can do the ping-ponging on the outcomes directly in Tape app. So that makes it a valuable tool for outcome harvesting. So let me share the screen with you to show you the actual what it actually looks like. So what you see here on the screen is a database of outcomes. So these are outcomes from one specific evaluation that I've put into Tape. So this was an evaluation for Action Aid Denmark, an evaluation that I've done together with Connie Russman, who's also present here, and Patrick Sanders. And I want to thank Action Aid Denmark as well for making these outcomes available, for us allowing to share these to show you the TAPE app. So basically every box that you see in here, every tile is an outcome that was harvested and put into this database, into TAPE. So I can click on any outcome here, just to show you one, and it will go to the actual outcome. So what you will see here is the outcome description is here, the significance description, and the contribution, which are the basics for the outcome statement. And then you have a lot of other fields which basically can be added. So if you need more fields to do some categorization for the analysis, for example, you can add them here as well. So everything in here is customizable. So this is the one that has been filled out, but I will also show you what the empty one looks like. A big added value here is that you can comment on the outcomes. So if I write down here, I can say, can you be more specific about who changed, for example, and I can send a comment. What I can do as well is tag somebody in here. So I can just put an ad and write a name there, and that person will get a message that they have a task to work on. So this makes it very easy to do the ping-ponging directly into TAPE. So you can comment directly on the outcomes, and everybody can also follow the outcome as the comment thread to see what was done. Another option for commenting is to write directly in the box for the outcome descriptions, for example, or the significance and contribution. And you can also put questions directly in here. So that's another option for commenting. You will also see that there's a question mark next to some of the descriptions. So here people can see what more information there is to be able to answer the question. So it gives a bit more specific information, for example, here on how to describe the outcome. So basically, this is what it looks like for the outcomes. So again, all of these, I've just showed you one, but all of these are outcomes. This view is also customizable, so you can change all of this. So if you want to group it differently, so right now here the outcomes are grouped per country or per region where they took place, but I can also change the grouping, for example, and have it to type of change, for example. So in this way, you will see that what pops up here is change in advocacy, change in formal collaboration. So that's the type of change that takes place. So it is up for you to reorganize this in a way that that is best for you to work with. Okay, let me put this back. Along the same lines, so that was just the organizing of the outcomes, but along the same lines, you can also change what's on the tiles here. So you could go to customize. What you see here now on the different tiles is the outcome identification number. So that's just a specific number that each and every outcome has. And you also see the social actor there, as well as the date of when the outcome took place. But I could also change it and put in different information. For example, if I click this type of change, you will see that on the tiles, I can also see the type of change. If necessary, you could even add the outcome description there, but that might be a lot of information, but all of that is possible. So basically, you can customize this the way that is useful for you. Now, how do you enter a new outcome? Basically by clicking on the new record. And then you can get the templates. And as I've just mentioned, this template is fully customizable by yourself. So it's very easy to do. Basically, if you go to customize fields, you can see the different fields here, and you could go to any of these and change it or put a different one in. So you can just click the edit button. For example, for the type of actor, you can decide if these social actors, for example, have to change. You can change if you want to have a drop-down list or if you want to have it as an inline or a list layout. So everything is changeable here, which is really useful because as we know in outcome harvesting, things may need to be adapted along the way. It may also be different for different projects, the way your template looks. So all of that you can just do in Tape directly. So basically everyone just fills out the template, the outcome description, for example. You just start writing. And when you're done, you click the Save button. And the outcome will be recorded in the same way here in Tape. So that is the main things that are very useful for outcome harvesting. Another thing that you can do with the outcomes is create a dashboard. And if you go to the dashboard, you can create some graphs based on your data. For example, I've created one here, so this is fully customizable. I've made one here about the social actors. So this is the type of social actors that were achieved, that influenced change. So here you get an overview of that, or a different one for the outcomes related to the different types of changes. That's also a possibility here. It's very easy to create another one, so you can just fully customize this. You can just pop one up and say, okay, I want a bar chart here. And you get a bar chart, and you can just customize this and say, okay, I want to change this. I want to have the type of social actor together with the significance, for example, significance rating. So how important is this outcome? And here you get the graph that was created. So you can give it a title as well. And there you go. Here you have your dashboard. And so you can keep on creating the ones that you need. So basically you can do this to immediately show to people what the types of outcomes were that they have influenced. Or if it's for monitoring within the organization, you can see where you're at with your outcomes that you've harvested. So this is also very useful. So this is all based again on the outcomes that are in here. So I think this is a very useful tool to use, Tape, because of its flexibility, as said. So that makes it easy to use. You don't need an IT person to do it. You can just set it up yourself. So that's really the advantage of it. You can collaborate on the outcomes, so you can do your ping-ponging directly in here. So everybody that needs to be in here can be invited into the Tape app, and you can work on your outcomes through the ping-ponging. So that is useful. There's a few things that Tape does not yet have, so a few less functionalities if you compare it, for example, to Podio. So at the moment, there is no web form yet. So that's a pity, but as said, it's a very new tool, so they're still developing new functions, and so it will most likely be created in the future. Along the same lines, there is an app as well, but at the moment you're not yet able to collect your outcomes in the Tape app, the mobile app, but that might also become possible in the future. And then also at the moment, it's not yet possible to create an app and put it, so to say, in a market for everybody to use. So at this moment, still everybody has to create their own app for themselves and the people within their Tape workspace to be using. So these are the main challenges that are still there, but as said, I think they will be solved as well soon. So that was the Tape app. So the link is in the chat, so you can go to the Tape website if you want to have a look at it and try it out. You can also have a free version to play around with it first to see if it would work for you or not. Okay. Great. So I'm now going to hand over to Claire Mansfield from Oxfam Novib, who will talk a bit more about a similar tool, actually, Cognitoforms, and how they have used it to collect their outcomes. So over to you, Claire.
Okay, I'm just gonna share my slides. Give me one moment. Could someone, Connie, could you just confirm you see the slides?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Nice. Okay, well, welcome. Hello, all. My name is Claire Mansfield. And I'm a meal advisor at Oxfam Novib. I support various meal things for Oxfam Novib in different programs, but I especially focus on outcome harvesting, supporting individual projects with that, capacity assessments, and also evaluation management. But I'm here to share with you specifically the Fare for All program's experience with outcome harvesting going digital, so using a platform called Cognitoforms. Yes. Just one slide for context. So the program I'm referring to for the experience with outcome harvesting going digital is Fare for All. It's a very large program by Oxfam Novib standards. It's a 71 million euro program for 5 years, funded by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It has 4 consortium members, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. And it has 100 direct partners, but it also has a wider partner network where partners have their own local partners. So it has a very broad partner network. It's operating in what we call projects, 17 projects globally. That includes 14 countries, as well as regional Asia, regional Africa, and a global project. And the overall objective of Fare for All is, well, to have a strong civil society, which is capable of creating space, mobilizing people for ultimately more inclusive and sustainable trade and value chains. And what you see on the right are actually the 4 pathways in the theory of change of Fare for All. So you can see the different ways that it works. And essentially, this is a program that really focuses on transformation in agricultural and extractive value chains. So why did Fare for All want to adopt a digital approach for outcome harvesting? Well, Fare for All had a predecessor program that was another 5-year program, and it didn't have so much of a digital element. It worked primarily with Box, which is a cloud storage solution that Oxfam uses, as well as Word and email to harvest its outcomes. And they were essentially looking for a more efficient solution. I use the example of Lego here because there was lots of outcomes. There was also evidence collected in connection with those outcomes, and there was many partners involved. So they were looking for a way to simplify processes. So they looked for a digital solution to, well, just harvest a huge amount of outcomes, to have a more organized place to store those outcomes. And they also wanted to link digital tools. So they wanted a platform or a tool that could be used for annual reporting and planning, for a capacity strengthening assessment, as well as for outcome harvesting. So they launched the use of Cognitoforms at the beginning of the program. I was there to support the rollout. It was a big effort, especially on the part of Oxfam's ICT and meal teams, as well as the meal people from all the consortium members, as well as meal focal points from each of the country offices that are connected to those 17 projects. So it was a big effort to collaborate and design the outcome harvesting process using Cognitoforms. And just to give you some perspective of scale, as of this summer, we have about 450 outcomes harvested across approximately 75 organizations. I'll briefly move away from the slides to show you how it looks online or live, but to give you an idea of how harvesting with Cognitoforms works for Fare for All. Typically, a partner will receive a link to the form, which is online. Then they can open the form and they can start filling it in. So you can see here a screenshot of one of the pages of the online form. They don't need to fill it out all at once, so they can save their progress and come back to it later with a specific link. And then when they're ready, they can submit it. And they also, it of course goes into a database that Oxfam Novib has access to, but they also receive a copy for themselves. And I've included some links here if you're interested to read more about their pricing and their features. But I'll briefly stop sharing so that I can actually show you what it looks like. Let's see if I can do this. Share. Just to confirm, can you see the web page?
Yes.
Nice. So this is the first page, or the home page you would see when you open the link to the outcome harvesting or outcome statement form, as we call it, for Fair for All. And what you can see here at the top are the different pages that you would go through till you eventually submit your harvested outcome. We have a brief page that's an introduction page with some general information. We also have some information on consent, and especially related to GDPR and privacy. And if you continue on, I'll go through this fairly quickly for the sake of time, but there's of course a lot more you could click through if you wanted to. The first page asks for some general information. So we ask for things like, who's submitting this outcome, who's the harvester, what organization are they from. We also have space here if your organization is not listed. So if new partners join the program, they have the opportunity to add their details. I will move ahead for time. Then we get into the actual content, which you may recognize. So things like the outcome title, the outcome description, what we call the significance/relevance page, and here more information on the outcome itself. We have a section on contribution, so both direct and indirect. And I won't click through entirely here, but lots of skip logic. So certain questions appear based on what you choose along the way. So in this case, if you say indirect contribution is part of this harvested outcome, then more questions will appear. And you can be asked, for example, to provide more details. Something that's been quite valuable to Fair for All has been that we actually collect evidence pieces through this platform. So we can, respondent can basically upload documents or add web links of evidence connected to the outcome they're reporting. And I'll get back to this later, but that's been a huge advantage for us. So here someone could actually upload a PDF, for example. I've just used as an example this presentation, but they could add something specific here. Second to last page, we have outcome categorization, and here we're asking for things like who was involved, when did it happen, is it a positive and negative outcome, is it intended or unintended, so some more practical details. We also link the outcome to our theory of change and the pathways, so there's more information here that could be filled out. And finally, someone can submit. We have some basic questions here about confidentiality and sharing, so whether outcome titles can be published, for example. Some general space if someone wants to add additional comments, some contact details, and emails for sharing the outcome statement. And finally, someone has to just click to check whether they've filled in the statement completely. If they try to submit and they've missed a box, they'll then receive a warning saying that their submission is incomplete. But if it is complete, in this case it is not because I haven't filled it in, you would be able to submit and then you would receive a copy. So that's a very brief demo of how we've used cognitive forms to sort of build essentially the outcome harvesting questions and key information that we need. I'm just going to stop sharing and go back to my slides. Share. Yes, so the last few slides, I just briefly wanted to take you through the Fair for All team's experience with this, about going digital. What were the advantages or the added value? What were the disadvantages or the challenges? And these are things we're still considering and working with the consortium and partners on. And you may recognize some of these if you're also using a tool digitally to harvest outcomes. The first big advantage is, data management. For 450 plus outcomes, it's very helpful to have it all in one place. So it's all in Cognito Forms, but we can also export it to tools like Excel. Before I mentioned, we can upload evidence pieces. So can you imagine, if you have, let's say, 6 evidence pieces per single outcome, it's very helpful to have an automated way to upload those into a storage solution. We can also have standardized titles for those. So we have a more structured way to also store the evidence that is attached to the outcomes that we're harvesting. And it's easy to identify and share outcomes. So they can be sent to the right people, and they can be emailed to colleagues or teams. Another big advantage is quality control. I've worked in the past where you have, 10 different Word documents that are all slightly different with the same questions for outcome harvesting. And here everyone is using the exact same version across all 17 projects. So that's been very helpful. There's also things like standardized numbers and drop-down menus in the form to help keep track and keep everything standardized. There's skip logic, like you would see in a traditional survey online. And of course, mandatory questions prevent any missing data. Other advantages, so to be clear, Cognito Forms is really a data collection tool, but it also really enables us to do more with data analysis and visualization, especially because it's easy to keep track of the incoming outcomes. So we can see who has submitted. You could check by project or by individual, and also when they've submitted. You can also categorize the outcomes. So you could have reviewers who are dedicated to look at specific outcomes, and they could find those very easily. Or you could categorize them by the completion status. Do you want to see the ones that are incomplete or the ones that are submitted and complete? So there's different options for how we can also monitor the incoming outcomes. We can also link outcomes over different periods. So we have outcome harvesting happening periodically over this 5 years because the program is using outcome harvesting for monitoring and evaluation. So it's easy to keep track of that over time. And we've been able to explore using different analysis tools like SPSS, Stata, and MaxQDA to actually then analyze the data further. And I think if you ask anyone what's been the biggest advantage, I think it's the time saved. Instead of spending a lot of time focusing on, is the outcome statement complete, the focus or the energy of Meal People could really shift to discussing the actual outcome itself, providing methodological support or analyzing the outcomes and looking for more insights there. So the example I have is, I can't share it because it's an internal brief, but we did a big analysis of all the outcomes harvested up to spring 2024. And we could look at where they were reported, how they link to the theory of change, and look for insights there, which was a nice example because, there was more time and energy for that. But there's also disadvantages, some very classic ones.
Claire, you have 1 minute left.
Perfect, thanks. Things like technical literacy and translations. So issues with people not being familiar with Cognito Forms, or issues with Cognito Forms not being especially suited for multiple languages. So solutions we've come up with are things like, we had a huge rollout with demos, and we have regular meeting spaces to provide support. For translations, we've experimented with things like Word copies of the form that are translated into different languages, although Cognito Forms isn't a great solution there if you're working on a program with multiple languages. Other disadvantages include something that I saw in the previous presentation. We don't have an easy way to comment on harvested outcomes. So in the image I have here, we can provide text below what someone has written, but that's actually quite hard to track because it doesn't use, color coding or an easy way to see who has said what and when. So we're also a lot of times working in Word to provide comments on harvested outcomes, or working in PDF with sticky notes to provide feedback. User permissions are also a bit of a challenge because we can't give a single project access to an overview in Cognito Forms of all their outcomes. Instead, we have to make custom overviews for them that they could review outside of Cognito Forms. And my last slide, last disadvantage would be something really specific more to Oxfam Novib and not so much with Cognito Forms. But we had a turnover of staff who were familiar with how to build the form in Cognito. So we also had to look at, okay, how do we make sure that we can maintain this form over time and update it? And we've also experimented with things like Survey CTO to see if there's other tools that might assist us or be more easy to use for outcome harvesting. I won't read through the bullet points on the right, but just to say that these are the things we're really considering when we look at digital outcome harvesting at Oxfam Novib. And I think overall, we've had a very positive experience with Cognito Forms, but we're still looking for ways to improve, especially things like partners' needs and ease of use. So how can we make this easily accessible in a language that people understand and make sure that the process goes smoothly? I'll stop there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Claire, for that interesting presentation. Apologies for my sound earlier on. I hope it's better now. Carmen or Connie? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
it
great.
is. Yeah.
Good. So we're going to open up for a couple of questions now. So 5 minutes of questions, and then at the end we'll have more time for questions after Steph has also done his presentation. So I'm going to take a few questions from the chat now, starting with the first one here. Maria, you're saying, what is the code reference you have there? Is it related to a program? I'm not sure which presentation you're referring to, so maybe you can clarify.
Yours. There was a little code on the top. I just was wondering what the code was.
And was that for the tape or for the Cognito Forms?
Tape.
Okay, there was a little code on top. Good question. What was it? The code on top was actually the outcome ID. So that's
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we gave every outcome a specific number, so that you can refer back to that. So that was the code that was there, yeah. But you can also change it into something else, so it's fully customizable. Okay, then there's another question saying that you mentioned that tape is not a software that is specifically designed for OH, but more of a business planning tool. I guess it means how long does it take to set up the software template with the different fields that apply to outcome harvesting exercise? And am I right in thinking that this is a tool for analysis rather than for data collection? So basically, yeah, it's like Cognito Forms is also not designed for outcome harvesting, but it's a tool that, has the way it works is really very good for outcome harvesting because you can set it up yourself as well. How long does it take? It's very easy to do. You can basically just import an Excel sheet with your outcomes into it and create an app in there. So that's the easiest way to do it because immediately you will have your data in there and you can start working with it. To develop the template, it doesn't take longer than if you would make a template in Google Forms, for example. So it's really just your questions that you have for collecting the outcomes. You can put them in there. I would say it takes you about 10 minutes to create a template, and then you can get going with collecting the outcomes. So in that sense, it's fairly easy to use. Is it rather an analysis tool than a data collection tool? No, it's rather the other way around. So tape is more for collecting the outcomes. So while you harvest, everybody can put their outcomes into tape. So you can just invite everybody. Well, you have to pay, of course, for your users, but then these can input their outcomes directly into the database. And then you have the value of being able to comment on those outcomes directly. So this is really a collaboration tool. So you collect them and you can collaborate on the outcomes. It has the function I showed of making these graphs, but these graphs are also very limited. So I would say it's very useful if you want to immediately show to people where they are, or just for a few things to have an overview as you do your monitoring and how your data is developing. You can look at that. But if you want to do more analysis, you would need to go to other tools like, for example, Tableau, Power BI to get more out of it. Then a question to Claire. Claire, how much IT support did it take to set up the Cognitoforms and system?
I wouldn't know specifically in terms of hours, but we had one dedicated staff who worked with us for several weeks when we initially built the form in Cognito. Beside that, there was a lot of discussion amongst Meal colleagues within the Fair for All neighborhood on the actual design of the questions and the wording of the questions. But once the form was actually built, we've needed ICT to help us to update it periodically and make small changes. I think the most investment was upfront at the beginning to build the initial form.
Okay, good. Let me just look at the next question. Joakia is saying, I'm wondering when in the process these software are used. Is it after ping-ponging review is completed? No, so basically it's before. So you can collect the outcomes, both in Cognitoforms and tape. You can collect the outcomes, and you can do ping-ponging as well in those tools. Claire, you want to add to that as well?
Yes, no, exactly that. I think sometimes we have partners who prefer to work in Word first before they input their outcomes, and we can accommodate that. But other times, I think most partners we collect through Cognitoforms and then have a discussion once it's in the system.
Okay. Then there's a comment from somebody from Safe Abortion Action Fund saying we have a system that looks quite similar using Airtable as a database and JotForm as a data capture system. We built this internally with no external IT support, but it was definitely time consuming and required a few savvy colleagues. So there's a question, do tape and Cognitoforms allow to provide comments to the submitted outcomes, making sure it has all the necessary information? There, you want to start with that?
Yeah, so Cognitoforms, like a traditional data collection tool, you could make questions mandatory. So in terms of making sure that the information needed is complete, it can help with that because of course, if something's missing, someone wouldn't be able to submit. But the actual ping-ponging or feedback itself, it doesn't really have specific features because it wasn't built for outcome harvesting. So there we will sometimes add comments in Cognito directly where people have added text, or we work with different things like Word or PDF to provide feedback.
Yeah, great. And so in tape, you can directly provide comments to the outcomes that were submitted. So there's a comment field and you can tag people to provide input. So you put the comment, you tag somebody, and then they get a message that they have to work on it. Okay, I'm going to pause the questions here, so there's more time for questions later, and I'm going to hand over to Steph Dupre from Voices That Count for demonstrating us the dashboard that they've developed. Steph, over to you.
Yes, hello. My name is Steph, calling in from Belgium, and I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Let's hear this. So yes, I will be talking about the dashboard that we have developed within Voices That Count. Maybe briefly, we are a collaborative network of experts in narrative-based method, participatory methods, actor-centered methods, mainly in the field of monitoring and evaluation in the international development scene, but also working more and more in citizen engagement and citizen participation for cities and municipalities. Mostly with narrative-based methods such as outcome harvesting, most significant change, sense maker, photo voice, and so on. We support organizations, of course, a lot. People that know me have a background in outcome mapping, a long time already, and working with outcome harvesting for some time, mainly in the field of internal monitoring and evaluation systems, not so much for evaluations. So looking into how outcome harvesting processes can be embedded in the existing MEL systems of programs and organizations. And in that sense, we have developed different tools, and one of them is the dashboard. We have one collection tool. I can say something about that later, but now it's more about the dashboard that we have developed. And that dashboard is helping us, or we developed it specifically to provide something to organizations that once they have harvested their outcomes, that they can share and present and work and use and analyze the outcomes in a user-friendly way, which is a bit in a standardized and structured way. So before I show it, I will give a few slides or some explanations. So what we do is it's storing all the outcomes that have been collected, mainly at the moment when they are cleaned. So it's not from the scratch when the first outcomes are coming in their rough form and they still need to be reviewed and verified and ping-ponged and whatever. So it's more at the stage of, we know these are the set of outcomes, and you store and you are able to present them to whoever needs to know it, but in a structured way as a dashboard is doing. We have chosen for an online environment, but the possibility is also there to save it offline, either on a laptop, but it's very handy to on a tablet or on a phone as well, to always have being able to access your outcomes and graphs and whatever is associated to it in case you would not be online. It's a relatively easy way to set it up. It's a standardized way to set it up. And we have also chosen to not link it to a specific data collection tool, but actually work with what is exported from a tool. And in most cases, that's Excel or CSV. So the basis of the dashboard is, in essence, an Excel sheet where everything is stored and added. And that is automatically then linked to the dashboard and making all the visualizations. It's also made for, and we see that that's the main use actually, is once you have the outcomes and you want to keep track of them, you want to use them over a longer period, which is often the case in the monitoring and evaluation process internally in an organization, is to share the result and making them actually accessible to whoever needs to work with them, whether that's the M&E people, M&E staff, M&E department, people writing reports, program people that want to check some aspects of their program management, country level, regional, head office level, communication people. Everybody can actually access the database in such a way and find whatever they want to find and use it for. And also realizing that different people in an organization are also looking for different things. It's based on a very easy, user-friendly filtering system, visualization system, and quickly looking for patterns and selection of outcomes. Of course, having that structured system and the visualization and all the features, it also facilitates analysis and reporting. All the graphs can be easily exported. All the outcomes that are selected can be exported to PDF or to a Word document to be used for even further analysis if you want. And quick pattern analysis, comparison between countries, between type of actors, between significance rating, whatever. You will see it in a minute. So that's the basics, the origins. Why did we do it? And we started off with it as the last 2 years in offering this to the projects that we were supporting as Voices That Count. But we have now come to the point that it's actually good enough and functioning very well to also be used to programs and projects that we are not supporting necessarily. So where does it sit in the outcome harvesting process? That was something that came up already for the other tools. So we have used in the last years Google Forms, Gobo Toolbox, Podio, Tape app recently, because Podio is becoming, we like Podio, but it's becoming very expensive, especially with multiple users. And Tape app is developed by ex-Podio staff, and it has exactly the same logic, and slowly they are catching up to get all the features. But yeah, the financial conditions are much better. We also have done projects using SenseMaker, which is not really developed for outcome harvesting, but you can also use it as a collection tool and for people to enter their data, which comes with some extra features then. And of course, we are using recently our own app, of course, for collection as well. So this is for the harvesting process and entering outcomes, the statement, descriptions, significance contribution, all the taggings, everything you would like to store into the system. And then for us, what we have done is Podio and Tape are the two, we discussed it already, are the two main apps that allow us to do the ping-ponging, the reviewing, multiple users, editing and fine-tuning the outcomes, which ultimately, once that is done, you can say in the monitoring process or the evaluation process, we have reached a level that we can say these are the final outcomes, or we have reached a good enough level that is then exported into a CSV or an Excel that is then connected to the dashboard that is custom made around the questions that are and the taggings and the logic that an organization and a project would like to use. So it's a kind of generic system, but it's 100% possible to customize it to the needs of your outcome harvesting design. So what does it give? And then I'm going to show you a real life example. So it gives a structured overview of all the outcome statements, the narrative parts. It will also automatically create graphs of all the outcome taggings, which are tagged during the harvest or during analysis or workshop processes. And those are the things that are custom made for each project. There is the possibility, once you select outcomes based on certain filters, certain patterns, that you can also export both graphs and the outcomes, and they're also linked. So many visualization like Tape and Podio, they have visualizations of the taggings, but you lose the connection to the original narrative. And in this case, we always connect graph with narrative. So you can look at patterns, the numeric data, the graphs, and at the same time connect with the underlying outcomes that are associated with that particular pattern or graph. You can look at trends over time if you are harvesting multiple times in a lifespan of a program. For bigger program portfolio, multi-country complex programs, we have also started to build in main and sub-filter options where you can start with country level, going down to objective level or specific project levels, so that multiple people in the organization, you have one database, one dashboard, but multiple people in the organization can find their data, but it's all stored together. And recently we have also created for really complex programs and bigger dashboards that you have entire pages that are set to a specific country. So all the graphs and all the outcomes are in the back preset to a particular country, particular timing, particular sub-project or objective related to a, let's say, a logical framework or a part of your theory of change. And that you don't need to click on 5-6 filters to get to your particular outcomes and patterns. So that's what I wanted to show before I give the visual. Let me go to the dashboard now. So this is the dashboard. So you can see it has a straightforward structure. Let's start with the outcomes. Yeah, I have taken a real project, but I had to anonymize a little bit, so I only have one outcome here that is a real outcome. Outcome, you see significance is included in the narrative part and the contribution, so we put that all together. The rest is dummy data, I just replaced it. But in this program, for instance, we had 4 big work streams working quite independently, but it's one program and there are some connections. So we have a graph of the number of outcomes for each of those different work streams. We have the type of actors that is entirely based on the tagging that was done. We see the overview of the timing. We have changes. Was it expected or was it not expected according to the plan? Is the scope in that case, it was important to know, are we talking about national level changes or more local and regional level changes? We have type of changes, which is of course also custom made. Those are the things that were relevant for this particular program. We have a significance rating, which in our case is always the result of an analysis sense-making workshop, not during the individual harvest, because then it's only based on one person rating it, but we prefer to do that with the entire team or with our entire stakeholder group that is in the workshop, and as an interesting collective rating exercise, which also generates a lot of discussion, of course. Some people might recognize this from another methodology, SenseMaker, where we use this triad system. I've used a few of those in the past, where we tag each and every outcome according to what is asked here to the labels. Every dot is representing a particular outcome, so you can see immediately visually a pattern that is emerging if you feed the system with more and more outcomes. And like, for instance, we asked, it's an alternative to this type of change. The outcome is mainly about activities, relationships, or capacity-oriented changes. So, and it can be anything in between. In the middle, it's the 3 things at the same time. Then we have also things related to the contribution. What is the nature, the type of the contribution that was associated to the outcomes? And of course, again, this is related to the project. What are the most common type of contributions that are popping up, that are known in advance, but also we often have an other option that is then later on also tagged into a specific term or name or contribution type. We have the contribution rating. On the left side, the project did not contribute. Most of the time, we don't have anything there because that would not be an outcome per definition. And then on the right side, we would have the outcome here. 57 outcomes are outcomes that are, and it would not have happened if the project wouldn't have been there. So we have a numeric scale of 5 that we usually can. This is a project, I just added it. There's another project where we had a specific focus on gender and social inclusion. They had a particular lens for that. Each and every outcome was tagged to the level of gender mainstreaming, you can say, and then with a summary of the different things that were found in most important. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so this is the, just to give an overview of the graphs that we have in the system here for that particular project. And as I said, it's custom made. If you have more taggings or less, it's all adjusted according to the program. Now, the good thing is that, as I said, there is a connection between the graphs and the outcomes. So if you are interested in, for instance, the education center outcomes, 18, if you click on it, you will automatically have the 18 outcomes. You can export them to Word, read them, analyze them. So it's also an entry point to very quickly, it's like a database to very quickly get, especially have a lot of outcomes to get to the right outcomes. And you can also make combinations if you are interested in the early years, for instance, from one particular work stream. Okay, in this case, it's only 2, but let's say that are very significant. Those are the 14 significant outcomes of the early years of the program. So you can have a combination of filters to find whatever you want to find for monitoring, reporting, or communication purposes or analysis purposes. So the filtering is very easy. Almost every graph that you see is also translated in filters, which you can combine. Those are the main filters. You also have some, those are the main filters here. Sorry, those are the sub-filters. The main filters are in this case a work stream, because they are the reports, the whole M&E system was geared around these 4 work streams. But this is sometimes the country. If you work in 5 countries, then it can also be a country level main filter. The moment you click on one of those 47 of DRF work stream, everything you are looking at now is only of DRF.
So Steph, we're not seeing your screen at the moment.
I see the screen. I do see the
now
screen.
It's back, yeah.
Okay. So that's what I meant with the main filter, which is good for more complex and multi-layered programs that you can build in this different filters. Building blocks are actually referring here to the theory of change domains. So you can say for DRF domain 2, what are the outcomes, and then look at the patterns and use that for whatever you want to use it. So main filter options, connection between graphs. Well, all the graphs are visualized, filter options, and the connection between outcomes and the graphs, which allow you to do quick analysis or quick finding and selection. So if you want the last year outcomes, you just click on the graph and then automatically they will appear here and you export it.
You have 1
Something
minute
we
left.
are now yeah, okay, good. Something we are now adding is that we can, with AI, we can link the Excel also to inbuilt GPT formulas and prompts, which then generate an analysis automatically on the outcomes. So for instance, this is the graph of type of changes. What are the nature of those? There is a summary here that is then, this is entirely based on, it could be also an analysis of, well, just a manual analysis, a desk analysis, and then you summarize it, you put it there, and then it will be there, and it's accessible for whoever wants to use it for reporting or other purposes. So the work that somebody does in the organization, whether it's desk work or it's automatically configured and made by ChatGPT or AI tools, it will appear here, also custom made. You can add whatever you want to add, but it's actually also becoming a database for people to, they don't need to do it again. It's already done by somebody in the organization, and they can then find it. So here the same with the conclusions on the main contributions. Then maybe some other thing that's features that we work with. This is the significance rating with a 4 scale, but we also, depending on the tool, you can also use a slider, and then you get a much more nuanced image of the contribution and the significance rating, where you can also select, like, give me the ones that are least significant. You select them, and then they will appear here. 67 outcomes are sitting in the lower range of the significance rating. If you combine the two, you can, I'm sure some of you have done that exercise also manually already in workshops. Here it's done digitally, where you can, every dot again is an outcome. So if you are interested in for instance, the most significant and the outcomes to which we contributed most, you can easily select them, and then they will appear 37, and you can filter them out, analyze them, and highlight whatever you want to highlight about it. So let's say we play around with different kinds of visualizations. Once the data is there, it's endless. We still have more things, but this is what I wanted to show. And then maybe another thing is that, as I said, you can also have preset filters. So in case you don't want to filter anymore, but you just inbuilt, this is the graph for the flow workstream. Each workstream has a separate graph. And once the data comes in, you can automatically see the patterns, click on it, read the outcomes, and do an analysis on it. And the tabs you have here, they can be configured the way you want. And for instance, we have now a project in 3 countries. They have each country is a tab with preset filters. So each country can go to their own tab and see their own evolution over time with the outcomes and look for whatever they want to look. I think I will leave it here. And
Okay.
happy to answer some.
Thanks a lot, Steph. Very interesting presentation. We're now going to move to questions. So if you have any questions, type them in the chat, or if you want to just pose them directly, you're welcome also to raise your hand and we'll let you speak. So starting with the first question for you, Steph. Michelle is saying, did I hear Steph say that the dashboard platform is now soon becoming available for sharing or for other organizations to use?
Yes, indeed. From June onwards, we have also started to offer this to other organizations and projects. Yeah.
Okay, great. So any other questions on the dashboard, put them in the chat. And meanwhile, I'll look for the other questions here. So Maria is saying also it would be great to know how can these tools relate to other monitoring and evaluation systems. Maria, do you want to explain that a bit further?
Yeah, for example, sometimes we have a different mail system in our organization. So this means that those systems need to interrelate with one another. So yeah, very good for outcome harvesting, but then how do we add all those systems? Some are harder to code than others. So I wanted to know if you had like any issues with regards to the coding of one system to another, and if you could share some of that. And if it's too specific question, we can chat about it on another day. Thank you.
Well, specifically for the dashboard, I think there are 2 options. One is that if you have a MEL system with some IT infrastructure around it, what we try to stimulate is try to include your outcome harvesting data within the existing structure that you have in-house. If nothing is existing, what has happened is that you have outcome harvesting, and any additional data that is relevant, as long as it's in Excel, it can also be added to the dashboard. Yeah, just make new tabs if you have an impact layer or you have output layer or anything. It could be also connected as long as the starting point is in Excel. So this is not only used for outcome harvesting. We use this for multiple methodologies and multiple purposes.
Okay. And then there's a few people here mentioning that they've used other tools for outcome harvesting as well, like Microsoft List and Monday, I see here. So also very interesting. And of course, if you would like to share about that experience, so do let us know, and you can also talk about it in a webinar. There's another question around, and that's, let me just check. So yeah, did you find that those reporting into the system need support to understand what the outcomes are that you're looking for and how to format them?
Well, there are 2 things there. One is the people being part of the harvesting process, reviewing and using the outcomes. They have been trained. Usually, they know what they are doing. They're also the main users, basically, of the dashboards. But then, of course, you have people in the organizations that might not have been in the organization, in the trainings, have not a full understanding of outcome harvesting. But we see that, for instance, in head, if you work on a local level or regional level, and even people from head office can access it, it's very user friendly. It's very straightforward. You don't need to have a lot of understanding of outcome harvesting to see and to use the outcome, the dashboard. So that has not been an obstacle. If that's an answer to this question, I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Seb. And then there's a question on, I think that's for all the tools rather, how best to ensure robust outcome statements go in. I think if we look at TAPE, for example, so there's collaboration on the outcomes. So people can put their outcomes into TAPE and then others can comment on it. So the actual ping-ponging can take place in the TAPE app. So in that way, you can ensure that while it's in TAPE, it actually becomes a robust outcome. So it doesn't need to be robust before it goes in, but you can develop it. You can do the ping-ponging in there. Claire, do you want to respond to that as well?
Sure. I think, yeah, it's a similar answer for Cognito Forms. We're also very closely monitoring when submissions come in. We have a breakdown where we have different meal advisors supporting different projects. So we can look in Cognito Forms and see, okay, how are they doing? Maybe we can identify some challenges and support them. So it's really an interactive process.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then there's a question or a few questions around the commenting on outcomes. So let me just show that because there's a question to show it as well. Let me just, with the risk of slowing down again, but for those who weren't able to see it beforehand, I hope you're able to see the screen with the outcomes in TAPE.
It's a bit small, Ole.
It's small. Yeah, I'm going to zoom in once I open the outcomes. So I'm going to open one of the outcomes. And so basically, can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically on the outcome, you can I'm just going to type comment and you can send that. Yeah. So this is in the outcome field or in the outcome where you have each outcome. So you can open the outcome and you can comment on it. And you can even tag someone on it. So you can just say and that name, and that person will get a message and they can go there and adjust the outcome. So in this way, you can do the ping-ponging directly in TAPE. You could also change the outcome description field itself. If you want to type directly in there, you can also put questions in the outcome description field. But the easiest way is to do it via the commenting function. I hope that responds to those questions around commenting. And Claire, if you want to add anything, go ahead.
In the dashboard, I mean, that's what I said in the beginning. This is really, it's not possible to have comments in the dashboard and have a kind of conversation with other users around it. So it's really, it's after the editing and the reviewing has been done. So it's almost to say the final outcomes. Sometimes you have smaller dashboards for the rough outcomes just to see where are we in the, but if you use TAPE app and Podio, you don't need to do that. You can see it there as well.
Yep, exactly. And then there's a question around connectivity. So how, is it, do either of these tools have challenges on connectivity? And somebody's also asking, is there an offline functionality? Well, that's a question for Cognito Forms. So connectivity, well, obviously it does take up some bandwidth because it seems my sound was going down when I was pulling up TAPE. Claire, I know for Cognito Forms, if you want to answer that.
I'm not aware. I don't think offline capability is available for Cognito Forms. It is possible to save your work and leave and come back later. So that's something we've worked with in cases where there's low connectivity.
Yeah. And did you have challenges, or how did you overcome them in terms of
Yeah, well,
connectivity?
sometimes partners would prefer support in submitting their outcomes incognito. So for example, they could send them to us in Word and we may be able to help them with that. So on a case-by-case basis, we can also look at how to support partners if that happens.
Okay. And Steph, in your case?
I don't, yeah, it's very low. I never have any problems, even in remote areas, to access the dashboards. It's both working on a phone, tablet, and a laptop online. And as I said, you can also save it and on your home screen as an app. But then, of course, if you are not online, you can still access the data in the latest version. If you are online, there will be no update. But as I said, in some projects, they have it on the phone, and then they can scroll even if they are offline and look for the data. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Then there was a question from Connie asking if in tape there is only the tile view, or you can also switch to a table view. Yes, there is also a table view, and you can also make lists in there as well, so you can change the view. Then there's an interesting comment to reflect on from Phil Smith. He's saying, I've used tools like Podio and Teams databases with forms, but generally I felt that these raised barriers to Teams writing outcomes in the first place. I've also felt that it creates distance between the local teams and their data, so reflection doesn't happen at the local level, which is where it is needed most. So I've always gone back to using Google Sheets. What's your reflection on this? That's actually interesting, because I would also see it the other way around. For the fact that people are able to put, for example, in tape, you can put your outcomes in directly and collaborate on it, that it makes people feel closer than when you have to work via Google Forms or send Word documents around, because you're really collaborating in the same tool on the outcomes. So in that sense, I guess I haven't experienced the fact that there would be more distance, but maybe Claire or Steph, from your experience.
Yeah, well, I think it depends a bit on your approach to harvest outcomes. I also like the idea of a participatory collective harvest with the right people in the room, and then a mix of writing and telling it to each other and really literally writing it up. I think it has its value. At a certain moment, you need to have the things in the system digitally. So often we use this web form from Podio to do that, but that can also be done in a collaborative way. But I also realized that Google Form and other web forms and other tools, it's more like entering something in a system, and then you click save, and then it's gone, and it's gone, and so you don't own it anymore. And I also think that once people have access in that workshop, for instance, to within Podio, within tape, in the editable version, that it's also working on it together. It's possible, but most of the time it's not the same people. That's the thing. If you do on the ground harvesting in participatory workshops, I don't use too many digital tools. It's the burden of other people more closer to the organization or to the M&E people who then do the further ping-ponging and so on. Because I always work with a limited number of people on TapeApp and Podio, which is like maximum 10, but the harvest has been maybe done with many more people, and not all partner organizations or anybody, other stakeholders are not part of the Podio TapeApp app.
Okay, and Claire, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, I can really relate to what Steph is saying about that feeling of you submit and then it disappears. Where does it go? But I think for Fair for All, we've really encouraged the projects or the partners to then come back to their harvested outcomes in an in-person setting, like a write shop or a workshop, and then reflect on them and link them to the theory of change. And that would not be done through Cognito forms. So Cognito is done really for the collection and the processing, but there's another process beyond that for actually reflecting on the outcomes, and their local partners, much more engagement with the different meal colleagues would happen. So I think we see that as an additional but very important step in the outcome harvesting process.
Yeah, great. Okay, there's a question. Can you save documents in tape? Yes, you can upload documents in tape. So you can use that for the substantiation, for example. If you have any documents that can support what was written in the outcome statements, then you can upload it. Also in the comment box, you can upload documents. Okay, I think those were the questions in the chat, but if you have anything, we have a couple of minutes left. So if there are any outstanding questions that you have on any of these tools, let us know.
Sorry, Julio, there's one question.
There's one on security. Yeah, I see it here. Question on how safe these tools are to use.
Yes, sorry, because in some of the locations we operate is quite unsafe. And like, for instance, this morning with one of the teams, they were saying like, if they take our mobile phones or anything like that, the information needs to be completely safe, because then it's an issue for them. So they're willing to go with technology to the ground, but they need to know the safety of the technology. So if you can say a bit on that, that would be amazing.
Okay, Claire, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, also has been a very important consideration for Fair for All in some of the countries where we work. Yeah, so we don't open up the submissions to all of the projects within the program. If anything, we create custom overviews per project so that we can manage who has access to the data. Also within Novib itself, only key people have access. But it is something we're very conscious of. For example, at the end of our form, we even ask if we can publish the outcome titles, and we have different levels of permissions for how we might share that data. But when someone fills in the form, they can specifically identify if they want to share it with additional colleagues. So there's also some level of responsibility in terms of identifying who should have access and would receive, for example, a PDF copy of the submission. So it's also our partners who are managing those PDFs and how they store them. But it is, yeah, an important consideration when looking at how to roll out these types of platforms or tools.
Yes, great. Thanks. And Steph?
Yeah, well, I think on the dashboard, it's maybe a bit less, but I mean, it's secure. It's all hosted on Amazon Web Servers, security password. So the one, even I cannot share what I just showed to you without you logging in and giving you access. But I guess it's more in terms of collection, and we have also been in situations where we have to be extremely careful in collecting data with the tools we use. Maybe one thing there is, I mean, there is the safety or the security of the tools themselves, but indeed, if cell phones are confiscated and so on, there are also ways of dealing with that in terms of fake apps, installing that the app is actually behind another app, and remote deleting of apps. Those things are all technically possible. We have one project that we do that because it's an extremely violent and dangerous situation. And the moment apps, somebody would be, phones are confiscated or would be arrested, remotely all the apps can be deleted, and the apps would actually never be found because they are behind other apps. So those are all things that in humanitarian aid, these are common practices, I think, and known practices. But yeah, that's already quite extreme. Most of the time that's not the case. Yeah.
Okay. I've put the link to tape in the chat, and Steph, Claire, if you have links, you can also put them there so people can
I see a
go
question here
there.
about the
And
dashboard. I don't have a specific link to further information on the dashboard on our site, since it's all quite new, but you can reach out to me and we can contact further. And indeed, it is available. It's not for free, unfortunately, but it's a relatively small cost, and it depends on if it's a one-off use or if it's longer term use over years, you want to install it. So that's it. But just reach out and then we can.
yeah.
Okay.
So Steph, you can also put your email address in the chat so people can contact you. And there was one more question from Connie asking if I developed a custom app for tape as well, like I did with Podio, but unfortunately that's not possible yet in tape. So should that become possible, then definitely I will do. Okay, so thanks a lot for all those questions, and thanks a lot to our presenters of today. So very interesting presentations, and hopefully this has been helpful to you to consider if you want to use any of these tools for your outcome harvesting process, or if you have any different ones, do let us know about those as well. So we will share the recording, and my apologies again for the hiccup with the sound at the beginning, but we will make sure that in the recording that is adjusted, so you can also look at that again. I also want to make you, before we really close here, aware of some of the upcoming things on the outcome harvesting community here. So most of you will have received a survey for an exchange meeting that we're going to try and organize. So many people have indicated an interest to not only meet online like we're doing here right now today, but to also meet each other face to face and exchange experience in using outcome harvesting. So we've picked up this idea and are thinking of hosting that hopefully next year, like around November, somewhere around there. And we've sent out a survey for you to give us some input on that. So if you received the survey, please provide us with some feedback on that. And then, of course, next week, the EES conference, European Evaluation Society conference, is coming up, and there will also be presentations on outcome harvesting. So do have a look in the schedule of the conference to look for the sessions on outcome harvesting. So we really hope to see you there. There's also a pre-conference training, which is an intermediate training, so not a beginner's training, for people who have used outcome harvesting and would like to get some more input from us as trainers as well as from your peers. So join for that as well. And then during the conference, we will also have a meeting with all outcome harvesting practitioners. So we will also keep you updated on that. Okay, Carmen, Connie, anything that we need to say before we close?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for reminding people of the EES conference and the gathering that we would like to have. So you're all invited to join us.
Okay, thanks everyone, and looking forward to see you also at the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.